In this lesson, we're going to bring together a lot of the information discussed in the two previous lessons, and we're going to do that by focusing on a client against the SOAP-based version of Amazon's e-commerce service. So to that end, I have a terminal opened, and you can see the command java-jar Amazon client soap.jar. That jar contains all of the required code and, for convenience, all of the source code, and we'll be looking at some of the source code shortly. My credentials are in a text file called creds.txt. That is, that file holds my access ID and my secret key. So let's run the demo and hope for the best. So the request was a success. What I got back was a list of items, in particular books, either by or about Jane Austen, and you can see the numbered list on the screen. I took the default number, which is 10, but we could have got many more. What I'd like to do is turn to the first of two working files in order to get a sense of how I got here. Let me open up Emacs again. And this working file is called Amazon soap.txt. What it does is reviews the steps that I went through. Amazon exposes a WSDL for its SOAP-based e-commerce service. You see the URL here. So I ran ws import -p. Again, this creates a package. I just called the package Amazon. The -keep keeps the source files, and then the URL is at the end. And this generates about 90 .java classes. And these classes include things that would be familiar to anybody who's visited the Amazon website. For example, there's a cart create class, an item search request class. I used that in this application. An item search request, also used. Items.java, also used. Similarity lookup, I don't use. To invoke the client, here then is a review. It's all packed into a jar file for convenience, java-jar, and so forth. And here's a slightly better format of the output from a sample run. The first 10 items returned from the request. Once again, as in the earlier examples, the JAX-B serialization occurs in the SOAP libraries. We don't see any of that. Now let me bring up the second of the two working files. This will give us a little better sense of the code structure. In particular, I want to talk about the code that I had to write. So from ws import, we get roughly 90 utility classes, and now I write two more. The first I call the Amazon client bare style. This reflects a Java naming convention. For SOAP-based services on the client side, Java will create clients in one of two styles. The bare style, which is simpler, which is why I'm using it, and they also have something called the wrapped style. Let me underscore that these styles refer to the client side, in other words, to how the client requests and then processes the response back. The service itself, of course, is under Amazon's control. I can't do anything about that. The Amazon bare style class contains main. It creates an item search request object for books by or about Jane Austen. It wraps this up in another one of those WS import classes called item search. My code then invokes item search. So this is one of the operations exposed in the e-commerce web service. What we get back from Amazon is once again a list of lists. So for example, in this case, we ask for books by and about Jane Austen, but we might ask for movies and records and many other things. So we'd get a big list, and in that list would be other lists of the items. We'll see that more clearly when we get to the actual code. There's a second class that I had to write. I call this AWS Handler Resolver. I'll get to the meaning of that very strange name a bit later. This is the counterpart of the request handler class used in the REST style clients against Amazon. Amazon is very, very fussy about how it wants the request formatted, and rather than keeping all of that up in the main class, Amazon Client Bare Style, I put that all down here in AWS Handler Resolver so that this class could do all of the grunt work. The interesting thing for us about this particular class is it actually has access to the outgoing SOAP request, and so it can format it in a way that Amazon requires. That's an overview of how the client works, preceded, of course, by a short demo. In the next lesson, we'll look at the code, in particular, these two .java files.